Hi, fans of Stalking the Wild Autoharp. I'm Hal Weeks. I'm coming to you from the store in the front of Daigle Autoharps. And we're going to start talking about improvisation. And I've been putting this one off for a long time. Comes to me from special requests from one of my patrons over on patreon.com. And if you are a Patreon patron of this show, you get to make special requests, and I like to try to honor them. And this one has been a long time coming. Improvisation. How do you improvise on the Autoharp? Well, you just kind of make it up as you go along. And the reason I've been putting it off is because I don't know exactly what to say about improvisation. I've been improvising since before I could play the Autoharp. I started on piano, and I learned how to improvise on the piano. And it's all about making it up as you go along. And if you have regular conversations with people, you are used to improvising because you're making it up as you go along. And you don't necessarily think out everything that you're going to say ahead of time. You might have a plan, a thought of like, here's what I want to communicate. But then how you go about communicating that, you are doing it on the fly, by the seat of your pants. And that's what improvisation is. You're just doing it with a musical instrument. And I know you all know that already. So I kind of have made a list over here of, that's right, I'm not going to improvise that part, of things that I want to say about this process. What you need to know before you improvise. Well, you need to know chords. And you'll have heard me say this before in my videos. And I don't, in this case and in this context, I don't necessarily mean you need to know the construction of chords and all the notes that are in them. You can improvise before you know that. What I mean in this case is you need to know chords and what they sound like, and which ones sound good together, and which ones make certain sounds. For example, if I use, 3 together in a row like this, I'm going to get an improvisation in a major key. And I know that because I'm using the 3 chords that make up that sound. If I use a pair like this, I know that that's going to give me sort of what's called a harmonic minor sound, and it's going to have a certain feel to it. But if I use a pair like this, that's also a minor sound, but it's a different minor sound, and it has a different kind of flavor. This is what I mean by knowing chords. The Autoharp sort of helps you make the music for you, which is kind of cool because on on the piano, you really have to know the chords and the chord shapes. On the Autoharp, it does a lot of the work for you. So that's a pretty great thing to be able to have at your disposal when you're improvising. So you need to know chords, the shapes of the different kinds of sounds. Here's a cool one. This one you can only do if you have a chromatic and pretty much a 21 chord chromatic, because you have to have two major chords that are a half step apart. For example, I'm going to use A and B flat. So A is here and B flat is here. And if I mess with these, look at what I get. Okay, see, I just made that up, but because I knew about these two, I could give it that kind of flamenco flavor. It's kind of cool. Autoharp's doing it for me, though, but you know, I'm giving it kind of a flourish and a fandango kind of sound, and it helps me do that. So that's the first thing that you got to know in order to put an improvisation together is what sorts of, I call them constellations, what shapes give what kinds of sounds. So that's one thing, is the chords. You also need to know sort of how to play melody at whatever level. You know, you can be a beginner melody player, you can be an advanced melody player, but you need to know how to play melody. And yes, you can do an improvisation just on chords. Let's see if I do that. Because when I do that, there's sort of a melody that comes out anyway. Another thing that you want to know and understand in improvisation is what a motif is. A motif is like the topic of your conversation. When you're having a conversation, you don't just ramble and not talk about something. You have a theme that you're talking about, a subject. And that subject may change as you go along, but you have a recurring topic that the two of you are tossing back and forth, and that becomes the theme. And it might even be a certain word. You might have a word that you're using over and over again between the two of you that keep you on topic. Now, enough time has gone by that I have totally forgotten what I did in the improvisation at the beginning of this video. But how did it go? Something like that. So my topic was that la-da-dum, just that. And you can play it, you can play it again, you can play it again higher, you can play it again lower. Let me see if I can give you an example. La la la, I came down instead of going up. Repeat it. These are called phrases, sequences. They're patterns that become a little piece, like a theme or a little mini tune. It doesn't have to be a fully fledged, drawn out tune, but it's something that is used again and again. It can be played rising and then falling. It's repeated, and it's repeated in different ways throughout the improvisation. And we could have a whole video about that. So that's called sequencing. Themes and then sequencing the themes. You can play them backwards. You can play them upside down. You can have them go away and then come back. But you have to remember how they go so that when they come back, others will remember them. It gives you sort of a kind of familiarity. Another way to do that is to have a set chord progression that you go around, that you improvise on. Even if the melody is changing constantly, the chord progression is always there. We hear this in, for example, blues. We'll have the same chord progression going along underneath it, but the melodies are changing pretty frequently. So here's a couple of things that you can play with in improvisation. And my video has run on for a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye for now. I'm Hal Weeks, Stalking the Wild Autoharp. Remember my Patreon. You can be a Patreon member and contribute to the ongoingness of this show. Also remember that I teach lessons online right from this very spot. You can have private lessons with me no matter where you are in the world or where you are in your playing. I can help you with that. And so you can go to my website, halweeks.com, and learn all about that. And also at my website, you will find the index to all things Stalking the Wild Autoharp. And I actually haven't updated that in a few weeks. But until then, keep on harping, and we'll see you around. I didn't mean to do that. Bye-bye.